Greetings, sir. My name is Grace Carr, and along with my fellow colleagues, we are Group 4. We will be presenting on the adverse effects of petroleum contamination on marine ecosystems. In this presentation, we will cover an introduction, a literature review, methodology, results and analysis, and recommendations, where we will further discuss. An oil spill is basically the leakage of petroleum onto the surface of a large body of water. This became a large environmental issue in the 1960s. Two of the historically known oil spills would be the Iran-Iraq leakage in the 1980s, where approximately 2 million barrels was released, and the Gulf War in the 1990s. Oil spills occurs as a result of employees' negligence, transportation, exploration, accidents. Example, accidents due to damages of like barriers, barges, storage facilities, etc. When oil or petroleum is released into the water, it forms a thick substance known as slick. This prevents sunlight from entering into the water, reaching the seabed, which in turn prevents the process of photosynthesis. This is necessary to produce food and oxygen, which is essential to the sustenance of marine animals. Coral reefs, which is an extensive and a complex community in the marine environment, it is greatly damaged and destroyed as a result of petroleum contamination. Consequently, petroleum contamination severely affects the marine organisms. As well, these effects or impacts includes mass death, so a high mortality rate. It also involves chronic illnesses, reproductive issues, infertilities, etc. Now, just to reinforce our research question is, what are the adverse effects of petroleum contamination on the marine ecosystem? Moving on, we will now head into the methodology. Over to you, Delissa.
Hi, everyone. So the basis of this research was to gather quantitative and qualitative data within the Georgetown populace and on the research topic. So data was collected from locals in Georgetown using Google Forms and from fishermen using interviews. So there was a random sampling to identify those respondents. So for the data analysis, the statistical modeling of data, which was the utilization of sample size determined tables, column graphs, and pie charts. Interpretation of the data was done using regular analysis of the statistics collected. I'm so sorry. Yes, so basically that is the methodology utilized in a nutshell on the findings of this research.
So the findings of our research, from the Google Forms survey and the interview, we came up with 5 graphs. And the first graph is a tally table showing the changes observed by the respondents to water quality. So of the 30 respondents, 22 respondents noticed a change in water quality in the area, and this is 73% of the respondents. And in all 4 cases, we can see that a negligible change was the predominant answer, with significant change being behind it. As such, we can say that the changes to water quality in the area was said to be slight or insignificant. Figure 2 shows the changes observed by the respondents to aquatic plants in the area. And here we notice that 12 or 40% noticed no changes, and 18 or 60% noticed some sort of change. So in essence, as 12 or 40% noticed absolutely no change, but 18 or 60% noticed similar changes, we can say that petroleum contamination was not majorly affecting plant life in the area. So now I'll hand you over to Lashana, which will link this to one of our sources.
These findings correlate with the finding of a review done by Miriam, and this can be found in paragraph 4 of our literature review, which further detailed how an oil spill can affect the plants when the oil spill. Now hand you back to Saya.
So now figure 3 illustrates a comparison between the responses obtained from the survey and the interview. And in this graph, the first 2 columns show the green shows the survey responses and the red shows the interview responses. And the first 2 show yes and the second 2 no. So here, 20 in the interviewed responses and 20 of the survey responses and 9 of the interview responses, which accounts for a majority, said that they noticed changes in the quantity of animals in the area, while 10 in the survey and 1 in the interview, which is the minority, noticed no changes. So as such, because a majority of the persons noticed changes in the quantity of animals, we can say that the amount of animals in the area has changed. Now, figure 4 illustrates other changes to animals noticed by the 10 interviewed fishermen. And here, 3 or 30% of them noted that no other change was seen, while 7 or 70% noticed some other change. From this, we can see that since a majority noticed other changes, which is 70%, we can say that other changes to animals were noticed due to petroleum contamination. Now I'll hand you over to Luciana to link this to our literature review.
Thank you. Holly's article, Effects on Oil Spills on Marine Animals and Coastal Wildlife, supported our findings since petroleum contamination does affect the animal's health and changes in behavior. It causes physical harm to the animal and chronic illnesses. Oil spill causes indirect effects such as relocation and disruptions to natural life cycles. Thank you.
So finally, figure 5 shows other environmental changes observed by the respondents. Of 30 respondents, 6 or 20%, which is the minority, noticed some other change to the environment, while the majority or 8% noticed no other change. So from this, we could see that as most of them noticed no other environmental change, but a few of them did notice some sort of change, we can see that petroleum contamination did have some effects on the environment, but they weren't very noticeable. Grace will start us off.
Okay, so before we go into the some recommendations, I would just like to say so what I would have understood or gathered, from pursuing this project, this research. For one, it was very insightful because I have never really considered the fact, until recently, again, actually started, we discovered that we had oil, the exploration and production. I've never really paid attention to the potential environmental effects and impacts that it can have on us. And these are both environmentally and economically. So I think it was very insightful. I gained a lot of knowledge on, the possibilities, the dangers, fishes can be infertile, not just limited to fishes, but other marine animals, which is essential to keeping our population alive, keeping the balance of everything, essentially. So that was my take on this project.
Similarly, as a future petroleum engineer, of course, we'll be working out with petroleum, and petroleum contamination can occur with our future job. So from research carried out, I gained more insight on what could occur, what we can do to fight off petroleum contamination. And it showed me ways I can teach others to combat petroleum contamination and ways to prevent it.
I think to add to what Grace and Saif just said, this research really enlightened us into looking at how we can sustainably mine oil It makes us more cognizant of how this great sector that our country is embarking on will, you know, to be more aware of the effects and do these kind of early warning monitoring of the oil. So when we have or when we take a proactive approach into um, that awareness and the things we do, we try to avoid spills or avoid contamination or try to develop technology to uh, be better about how we go about mining the oil and what we add to the industry and the economy and the nation.
So we know that the purpose of the study was to find out the adverse effect of petroleum contamination on marine ecosystems in Georgetown. So before conducting the study, I was aware of the benefits of the benefit petroleum contributes toward the economy, and because I'm studying it and everyone talks about it, whether in newspaper, the media, etc. However, after conducting this study, I realized that there is the dark side of the sector. I learned about the detrimental effects petroleum has on the ecosystem if not managed properly, and how it all leads back to us, meaning it can also, cause harm on us, etc. So yeah, this is why we must not overuse the resources, and um, we must use it in a right way so as to prevent or minimize any disadvantage to the particular sector. Thank you.
While conducting this research, it further helped me to appreciate a course that we would have done this semester, which was health and safety. So I gained more appreciation for that course because I mean, if we're safer, then an oil wouldn't spill. But again, certain things we cannot prevent, and in the event that it happens, it also while doing this project it also helped me to see how much it affects the animal, it affects the human being, and not only those in the on the coastal area, that will affect the entire country. And before the oil is even spilled, I was not that fully aware that it could affect the animals, the drill and the sound. So a lot of information was basically gathered, and doing this project, it was basically informative.
Throughout this research project, we can all agree that we discovered a lot of new concepts. I focused mainly on marine animals and coastal wildlife. When exposed to oil spills, marine and coastal wildlife can have behavioral changes and health issues. Engaging in this research project, I learned quite a lot. This experiment, or research project rather, it was a good experience. It was a great one. Despite the challenges, this research was very effective and I learned a lot as it pertains to oil spills. The general topic was effects of oil spills on marine plants and animals. The name itself is pretty self-explanatory. I really did enjoy this research project since we here are all future petroleum engineers and technicians. The research was very fascinating, and all the knowledge we gained will stay with us for a long time. My interpersonal communication skills was improved. All in all, I can say it was an interesting research project.
I mean, I know we have quite a few recommendations, but do we have any that we want to add? I think sensitization and education is essential because Ghana has now discovered oil and started exploration and extraction of oil. And only recently I learned, thanks to Delhi, of the National Oil Spill Committee and, measures that Ghana is now putting in place. So I think not just like educate the professionals, but also the public on like what they can do to help, to assist, to protect the environment in the case of an oil spill.
So add, as Lashana said, health and safety, it's best to prevent than to wait for it to occur. So prevention is key for safety, and companies should learn to do checkups and basically maintain their infrastructure to prevent oil spills from occurring in the first place.
All right. So on the second recommendation listed there, where it talks about proper training and development, That is a really great one because as we learned, referring back to HSC this semester, having that knowledge of how to operate safely is really important, and not only operating safely, but ensuring that the machinery being used and the equipment being used operates effectively as well. So I think the second recommendation is really great, and it really ties everything together.
Well, thank you, sir, for listening to our presentation.